2023 BMR project, Economics 12, Zach Mailer, and I'll be touching on key economic and business components on various films and pieces of media. The Wolf of Wall Street is a 2013 film based on the memoir of a man named Jordan Belfort, who was a stockbroker at the time, who engaged in lots of security and fraud. This movie also features lots of corruption during the late 1980s and 1990s. Jordan Belfort really shows the economic incentives that he goes through the story to weigh his greed to his morals. In this summary, we'll explore the film's key plot points and its relevance to economics and business. The film follows the rise and fall of Jordan Belfort, who starts as a junior stockbroker on Wall Street. After the stock market crash of 1987, he loses his job but finds a new one at a penny stock brokerage firm on Long Island. There he learns the ropes of unethical stock trading and quickly rises to prominence. As a short summary, Jordan Belfort and his partner, Donnie, eventually establish their own brokerage firm. They employ high-pressure sales tactics to manipulate clients into buying worthless stocks, making millions of dollars in the process. So basically, they essentially just lie to make money off their clients. But eventually, the FBI and the Federals actually catch wind of what they're doing on their firm, and they face legal consequences. My initial reaction to this movie was about how Belfort was able to rise to the riches very fast, but also lose it very quickly. This movie really gave me an eye-opening realization on how making money in unethical ways can really come with repercussions, as shown in the movie. Even though his sales tactics were super smart and genius, it still came back to bite him in the long run. What I think might have pushed Jordan Belfort to act this way and do some of the things he did was seeing all the successful people on Wall Street and the lifestyles they lived, and honestly, I believe it was just because he just desired what these people had, and which led him to unethical practices. Another key takeaway from this movie is around the area of greed. For example, Belfort was super greedy throughout the whole movie, which ended up leading him to get caught, just constantly wanting more and scamming more people, essentially. My second artifact I'll be touching on is a Netflix original TV show called Top Boy. Top Boy has two main characters, Duchesne and Sully. It's set in East London around the year 2020, and it really features about their economic struggles through trying to become the top boy of a criminal underworld. Sully and Duchesne navigate through a world filled with rival gangs, turf wars, complex moral choices. As they rise through the ranks, they must grapple the consequences of their actions and impact on their community. I find it interesting because near the beginning of the series, they have more of an economic incentives to make money. And by the end, it feels like they might have more of a moral incentive that takes play in their lives because some of the members stop dealing drugs, for example, stop making deals, or they take the money and they use it for a better cause. Similar to the Wolf of Wall Street, all of their practices to make money are super unethical. For example, in Top Boy, there's lots of killing and betrayals and whatnot to make sure that they are making the most money possible. When they resort to selling stuff that makes people or puts people in a position to potentially overdose, it really shows the morals and their ethics and values of the characters and why greed plays such an impact and a role in this story. Another key takeaway from this series is around the fact of the importance of education and youth support. The series portrays the challenges of young people growing up in disadvantaged neighborhoods with limited access to quality education and positive role models. Without positive role models or good education for the youth, it's easy for them to fall into lots of bad things. Another thing I took away from this series was why it's important to have a strong community around you. I found that the characters really come together in times of crisis to support each other, emphasizing the importance of community solidarity. In conclusion, for Top Boy, I feel like knowing the different incentives really helped me grasp a better understanding of the characters in the show and why they were driven to do the things that they did. My third artifact I would like to discuss is a movie called The Big Short. The movie follows a group of investors who saw the impending collapse of the housing market and the financial crisis of 2008. They decided to bet against the market by using credit default swaps and other financial instruments, essentially making a huge profit from the collapse that many others failed to predict. The film highlights the struggles and challenges in convincing the financial industry and regulators of the impending disaster. First takeaway for me from this movie was it shows the complexity of financial markets, more specifically around mortgage-backed securities. It shows how financial instruments can be so complex that even experts do not fully understand. My initial reaction to this movie was I find it quite shocking how they were able to make predictions on the market to be able to turn over big profits. Something I feel like I really learned from this movie was risk management. In this movie, they really underscored the importance of risk management and investment portfolios specifically. For example, the characters in the movie use various strategies such as shorting the housing market, mitigate risk, and potentially profit from the crisis. As someone that's super interested in looking into having an investment portfolio in the future, I found that this was super helpful and super eye-opening. Another takeaway from this movie that I found interesting was morals and not being responsible with financial decisions. In this movie, they show the hazard that exists in the financial industry where banks and rating agencies were willing to engage in risky behavior because they believed they would be bailed out in case of crisis. This behavior contributed to the financial bubble and subsequent collapse. What I took away from this is outside factors to give you financial support might not always be the best option. And what I think this helps me value the importance of having financial stability and being financially sound on your own. In The Big Short, it also highlights the human cost of financial crisis, as many people actually lose their homes in the movie and their jobs due to this economic fallout. It underscores the importance of financial regulation and oversight to protect the broader economy from such events. What I learned from this was it's really great to have assets that have great liquidity and to maybe even have a good rainy day savings saved up just in case of an economic fallout like what took place in this film. When making investments, it's also important to make critical and deep analysis of the investment you're trying to make. A great example I found of this in the movie was the protagonist in the movie who bets against the housing market conducted extensive research and diligence before making their investments. The movie really emphasizes the value of thorough analysis and financial decision making. In the end, I feel like this movie really helped me connect and reflect on what I'd be able to do in an economic crash, such as what happens in the movie, and how to make better financial decisions with investments, for example, and saving. My fourth artifact that I'll be talking about and discussing is a TV show quite actually similar to Top Boy called Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad is a series that I watched a while back, and it gave me a good perspective on the structure of businesses, whether it's illegal or legal business. A quick summary of Breaking Bad is a TV series that really follows the transformation of a man named Walter White, who was a high school chemistry teacher who turned to manufacturing and selling meth after being diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. The show explores themes of morality, crime, and consequences of one's actions. And I'm going to talk about a few key takeaways. First thing I like to touch on is the concept of opportunity cost. In the TV series, Walter White's decisions to enter the drug trade highlights the concept of opportunity cost because he sacrifices his career that he's worked hard for, studied for lots of years as a well-educated chemistry teacher, to pursue selling illegal drugs. I think knowing this gives a great perspective on Walter White's ethics and values when he makes a choice to do illegal rather than legal for potential gains, and when the ethical and legal costs are high. Going back to the idea of how businesses structure the same, even if they're illegal or legal, price elasticity, for example. In the show, they really explore price elasticity when Walter White and his partner Jesse Pinkman have to adjust the prices of their illegal substances based on market conditions and competition. It demonstrates how demand for illegal goods can be influenced by price changes. The business they're working in is a high-risk, high-reward industry, but throughout the movie, they take little precaution of getting caught. There's a great significance of moral hazard in this movie. In this series, they really highlight when the characters take risk with little regard for potential negative consequences. For example, like getting arrested or getting busted for selling illegal substances. Walter White's actions have a cascading effect, affecting not only his life but the ones around him, showcasing how moral hazard can lead to significant collateral damage. For example, he has a son that was super attached to him, loved him very much, but then when he found out that he was doing the things he was doing, he started to have hatred towards him, which is a great example of collateral damage from how he was deciding to make his money. In the end, Breaking Bad gave me a great perspective on why moral and ethical decisions are very important even when running a business, and also how business structure can apply to multiple different kinds of businesses. And lastly, about how your economic decisions can also affect the lives of all the people around you, causing collateral damage. The next artifact I'll be talking about is a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, written by a man named Robert Kiyosaki. The main concept of this book is teachings of financial decisions from two perspectives of a poor dad and a rich dad. Poor dad represents a traditional mindset of seeking a job, security, saving, and living within one's means, while rich dad embodies the entrepreneurial mindset of taking calculated risks, investing, and building passive income streams. So the main idea here is that the poor dad will take the more secure traditional route, as the rich dad will essentially take more risk. The biggest learning point for me in this book was learning about assets versus liabilities. He gives the main idea that nobody ever got rich from simply just saving. It's important that you must have a stream of assets that have income flowing in, but at the same time that have good liquidity and that have high profit margins, and that create passive income. Similar to the last point, another key idea is cash flow versus paycheck. Robert states how having a paycheck or receiving a paycheck isn't necessarily a bad thing, but to build up your wealth, it's important to have cash flow, meaning that you don't exchange your time for money, but rather you have other sources of income that are generating you wealth passively. This book also touches on the importance of having good financial education and having great financial literacy. The book emphasizes the critical role of financial education in making informed economic decisions. Robert also argues that traditional education rarely provides the financial literacy needed to achieve financial independence, and individuals should invest in self-education to understand money management, because if you don't understand how money works, it's hard to become rich and financially independent. Last key point I feel like I really learned from this was how to embrace risk wisely, because it's important to take risks, but it's really important to not make terrible decisions while taking risk. Robert highlights the importance of taking calculated risks, such as investing in assets or starting a business, rather than playing it safe by relying solely on a job. He suggests that taking well-informed risk can lead to financial growth and greater opportunities. But however, if you make poor decisions while taking risks, that could just lead to doing you more harm than good in the long run. In my opinion, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a book I think every teenager that's aspiring to be wealthy should read and could really benefit from. And I think I'll be returning to this book over the course of many years to keep on reading and gaining knowledge. After reading this book, it really gave me a different perspective on what I want to do in the future, to make money, and the mentality I want to have coming out of high school, going into the real world, is having an entrepreneurial mindset. Rich Dad Poor Dad, in the end, really encourages readers to think differently about money, assets, and financial independence. Promotes the idea that financial education and entrepreneurial mindset are key to achieving economic success. Lastly, I think this BMR project really helped me really think about all the economic terms we learned in class and it helped me really think about them while watching these artifacts and these films. And it really gave me a better understanding of these movies in general and why the characters do what they do and maybe what their thought process is like. Economics serves as foundational discipline that offers valuable insights into how individuals, societies, and governments may make decisions regarding what they have, their resources, the people around them who they're selling to. And I think that's why it's important to learn as somebody that wants to own their own business when they grow up. So yeah, that's my economics BMR project. I looked over artifacts such as Wolf of Wall Street, Top Boy, Breaking Bad, and lastly, Robert Kiyoski's Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. And also the movie about an economic crisis, The Big Short.